Welcome to the Small Town Big Dreams podcast. My name is Becky Waples, and this is the podcast that celebrates small town creators and shares their stories. A creator to me could be an entrepreneur, someone with a side hustle, a person with a passion project, even a social media guru, or anybody else who has taken their goal and is crushing it. From their background to where they found the courage, from their challenges to their wins, to where they find inspiration and how they took their first step, I cannot wait to chat and laugh about anything and everything that comes with creating something from scratch. If you are inspired by small town creators who turn their big dreams into reality, then this is the podcast for you. Please subscribe to hear all upcoming podcasts, follow me on Instagram, and leave a review or comment so I know what you want to hear and what creators inspire you. Let's grow together. Today is my first episode. Thank you for showing up. My first episode is also my introduction. I hope to use this episode to send to inspiring creators when asking if they'd like to be on my podcast, and use this episode to introduce the show to you, my listeners. As with anything, the first time you try something, there are bumps along the way and things can be less than stellar. So maybe one day I will replace this episode, but I really believe in starting before you're 100% ready, and why not me? So here we go. My goal for this podcast is to be a platform for small businesses or creators who want to share their stories with their customers or clients. Sometimes customers are very committed to a venture, but they don't know the backstory or why they started or how much they appreciate their followers, their business. And I want my guests to be able to share their episode with their followers and say, hey, this is me. This is why I do what I do. This is how I got started, and this is why you should do the same thing, and thank you. At the same time, I really want to inspire listeners who are asking themselves, can I do it? Can I work for myself? Can I start a side hustle? Can I take my passion to Instagram, to TikTok, to social media, to customers? What does it take? And maybe I have a listener saying, I love working at Starbucks. I want to open a coffee shop. Can I do it? And if they have any apprehensions, I want them to be able to listen to this podcast and hear stories from other small town creators who were once in their shoes. And I want them to hear real stories from real creators who are just doing it. I want listeners to leave every episode with inspiration to go do their own thing. And I want them to think to themselves, maybe I'll be on one of Becky's episodes in the future. Lastly, I really want to highlight small town communities and how they back and support these creators. Small towns love innovation, they love supporting small, and they love a good story. But first, let me introduce myself and tell you why I wanted to start this podcast. My name is Becky Waples, and I live in Saugeen Shores in Bruce County, and I was also born and raised here. I grew up in Lions Head, about an hour north of where I live now, and according to Google, it has a population of about 600 people, which is about 20% more people than there was when I lived there. So I know small towns. I live with my husband, Jack, and two little boys, and they keep me busy, but also always entertained. I've always been inspired by entrepreneurs and creators. I wouldn't describe myself as a risk taker, and I think that I've always associated entrepreneurs with taking huge risks. And so I never really thought it was in my cards, but I always admired those who did. Then COVID happened, and I didn't have childcare and I didn't have any way to socialize my children. So I took the risk and I started a home daycare. It was on a small scale, but I managed my own hours, finances, menu, health, and safety, and I loved it. Meanwhile, I was watching Instagram, social media, and everybody else that was on those platforms were also starting their own ventures and trying to get their creative juices out in one way or another. And I found it so creative and so inspiring. Anyway, after a year, I did go back to work. I worked in an office for a large organization and I was there for 2 years, but I knew that what was best for me wasn't going to be sitting behind a desk working for someone else's dream. So I left that job and I am now working from home where I do digital marketing as a contractor, and I have started this podcast. The goal would be to have my own digital marketing company and continue to grow this podcast. I have other dreams, such as Dip Dip Hooray or Saugeen Shores Baby Rentals, but those are for another day. I hope you're excited to follow along and listen, whether you're here to listen to your favorite creator or here to learn and listen from new creators and listen to new stories. I want to encourage all listeners to reach out to me on Instagram if you want to be a guest or if you know someone I should interview, and I will always welcome feedback, so please feel free to message me with any ideas or suggestions. So thank you for tuning in to the Small Towns Big Dreams podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I hope you are ready to be inspired by our guests and motivated to start your own journey.